I mean, I could just wrap up in 10 seconds and say, come to our conference next week, because I will proceed Todd in... Exactly, sorry. So, you know, if I can just add real quickly, because I don't want to take away from you guys listening to Roger Stark and Jason and Paul, others that are still yet to them, Carl Gibson, I think, is coming. But I think one of the things that Todd didn't mention, that if you look at the publications that are in your packet from the Environmental Center, that has been a big part of what we're doing and what we're talking about. First of all is I love the Policy Center because we offer solutions. We don't just get up here and talk about these things, but without talking about solutions. And one of the things that we've heavily promoted in our 2010 recommendations, and what we did with this Earth Day piece where we did a 5-year look back, was we've made the point that when we adopt these policies as we move forward, we also need to be auditing these programs. We need to be finding out how we're doing with these policies as we move forward. I think that's a fundamental principle that's missing from the work that we currently do, from the policies that we currently have. So I'd encourage you to take a closer look at those things that we have, because it will talk about how we can audit. A lot of these things that Todd talked about, if you look at our publications, we talk about how you can audit these type of things. Just let me give you a quick example. Is the Growth Management Act working?
No.
It's a trick question, because I'm going to tell you everybody the answer is wrong. You don't know if it's working or not. You don't know if it's working or not. We, in 20 plus years of growth management, have never audited the GMA. We've amended the GMA over 100 times. We've had over 1,000 growth hearing board decisions. That's just decisions. We've had many more cases than that go before the growth board that have been dismissed or not acted upon. But the point of that is that we don't know what growth management is doing to us. We don't know if it's successful. Let me give you an example. At the University of Washington, a professor there did a study on the effects of GMA on the price of housing. When he came out with his report, he was immediately attacked by the Planners Association of Washington. And they came out and said, he's wrong. The study from UW said that GMA adds $200,000 to the price of a home into the Seattle market. And they said, no, you're absolutely wrong. It adds $67,000 to the price of housing in the Seattle market. Okay, but that's not what GMA is only about. GMA is not only about affordability. GMA is not only about urban development and rural protection. There were 13 goals originally adopted. A 14th was added many years later, and 13 years later, and the Shorelines Management Act was rolled into the Growth Management Act. And we have to stop and we have to ask the question, how are we doing? According to Department of Commerce, formerly known as CTED, the parent agency of Growth Management Act, they even admit that no comprehensive review has ever been done on the Growth Management Act. So if you want to learn how we can audit the GMA, it actually turns out that the legislature funded a study through the University of Washington in 2005. Funding ran out and it was put on the shelf over at the Department of Commerce, and they've never touched it since. And the goal of that was to evaluate GMA, to start the process to establish benchmarks and indicators to see if we are accomplishing the goals of GMA. So I think it's when you listen to things about the environment, I think what I've just talked about with growth management holds true for so many environmental policies. We need to audit. We need to know what we're doing. If we can't stop and look back and see what we've accomplished, what are the impacts, what are the costs, then how do we know if we're truly having an impact? So,
just a quick question. 1.5 acres, stream in the back, well in the front, building envelope, 1.5 acres, 20 by 25. Growth Management Act is not working in that particular situation.
I won't argue that. You can go to, I did this exercise with my office, my coworker Jason Mercier, who you'll hear from later. I was showing him yesterday. You can go to Geodata, Thurston County's source for tracking things like wetland buffers and whatnot. And you put on there, you put an overlay of the growth boundaries, and it shows you where essentially, according to the comprehensive plan for Thurston County, where they want everyone to build. And then you start putting the overlays for wetlands, wetland buffers, stream buffers. And Fred, you know what I'm talking about. You look at this stuff, and all of a sudden, it's no wonder that more than 24% of the people last year in Thurston County pulled a permit to build in the county and not in the urban growth areas, because you can't build in those areas, and having this hard, fast rule and hard, fast growth boundary lines don't necessarily work in every situation. But I'll also say, it doesn't mean that it doesn't work in some other places, but we don't know because we won't pause and ask the questions that matter most.
I was in local government for 8 years.
Yep.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and now being in the state, I'm ranking minority on local government and housing. I've asked for this review of GMA constantly since I've been there. Can't even get consideration.
Yeah. Yeah.
November's coming.
Yeah.
I'll leave that up to you guys. Thanks.
So Brandon is going to take just a few minutes here to tell us about a website that we have that is a great resource for doing research on actions that the legislature has taken, roll call votes and things like that. And then again, we'll wrap up right at the end.
So Todd's not before me this time, so I actually get to talk. Yeah. No, I'm going to take less time than that. How many people know about WatchingTheVotes.org? Oh, wow. Okay, so let me just point out. That's great. That's
okay. You're fine.
Keep using it. Send support. So 4,100 bills were introduced in the legislature in the 2009-2010 biennium. Okay, there were 3,200 amendments. Now that does not include substitute bills. And almost every single bill that moves its way through the process gets a substitute or two or three before they start getting amended. That's just technicalities. So there's a lot going on. How do people outside of Olympia keep track of what's going on in Olympia? Well, we provide plain English descriptions of every bill, substitute, and amendment that is offered down there in Olympia. We, in 24 hours, turn it around and have it posted on our website. And for those that are subscribers to our email list, we send out an email as soon as we have uploaded those into the system, letting people know what has been introduced in the legislature that past 24 hours, or acted upon in the last 24 hours. We provide a couple different searches that people can do. This one's more to search legislation. Our database provides a better search than the state's legislative website. Let me just give you one example. The state's website, legislative website, if you wanted to go in and search the income tax bill that was offered this session, you would go in and put income tax and nothing would come up. Because the state's site only searches the titles of the bill. And it was called fiscal reform. So it doesn't come up. So we have a much better search system. Our database is better. We have over 110 keywords that we plug into it that allow you to be able to search and understand what those bills are really about. We also changed the titles to let people know what they're really about. But I think another thing that's really important just to quickly point out is another search that you can do, and that is we allow people to search and see what their elected official is doing in Olympia, how they vote. How are they voting? So you can go in and you can see every bill that your legislator has sponsored. You can go in, or let me correct it, introduced. We don't do sponsorships because anybody can sign on at pretty much any time. So if you've introduced the idea, the legislation, we have it noted in our system. How you vote on those individual bills, everything is right there. And just for you guys' information too, we send these things out. At the end of each session, we do a missed votes report. We identify how many votes certain individuals missed. And it's not concrete data yet. I'm watching it as the years go along, as we get a bigger data set. We've been doing this for over 8 years now. But the number of legislators that are missing votes has drastically come down over time. You can see. And I think I would attribute it to the fact that they know that we have given an easy access way for their constituents and for the news media to see how many votes they're missing. There's legitimate reasons to miss votes, family emergencies, health, sickness. We're not, and so we're mindful of that. But it's there, and people should be allowed to look and at least be able to ask the question, we sent you to Olympia, why were you not there to vote? So those type of things are in there. We send out roll call reports to 33 newspapers across the state. Every single legislative district is covered by the roll call reports that we send out to the newspapers. It's published on a weekly basis. We pick the top 5 bills sometimes more, sometimes less of the week, and we identify how legislators voted. We give that analysis and send it out to the papers, and they reprint it. Quick question?
I'm still finding it difficult to understand how my opponent can have 67 family emergencies in one legislative session.
Yeah, I won't get.
Big family, too, Catholic.
You know, I won't get into that because, again, I really believe in working with legislators. There's legitimate. We do give people the opportunity to respond when they're one of the top vote missers because there are legitimate reasons. But even those reasons count up to it. It's about accountability, and that's what the site provides: is accountability to actions in Olympia.
Why don't
You
you
also
take this
track-
question as the last one?
You also track a legislator voting for a different legislator.
No, we don't. That's a completely different issue that's outside of our control. That's something the legislature themselves needs to set within their own rules. So, thanks.
Great point.
Please use your site.